weekend. Today, I will be talking about the NCAA tournament, and I am joined by Mason Gleva.
Hi, good to be here.
So yeah, this is the sports show called Beacon Ballers, and you want to get underway with the first game?
Sure. I mean, we were hoping for a better game to start the day with Louisville and Creighton, but Creighton kind of came out on fire. In the Cards, they never really had an answer for it.
No,
They made their threes early, and then they couldn't buy them when they needed them.
No, and Creighton was always on top of that game. It wasn't really close the entire time.
I mean, the score went a little more respectable.
Yeah.
It did end at 89-75, but Creighton, once they started making their shots like we all knew they would, they really just kind of pulled away.
Yeah, and then, well, yeah. There's not much you could have done if you were Louisville there. It's just one of those days where it's just Creighton's feeling everything and Louisville's not doing much.
Which was also interesting because that game was played in Lexington, which is not far from Louisville. So it was a virtual home game. So the fact that Creighton was able to come in there, really take the crowd out of it, was impressive.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the next game down on that side of the bracket is Michigan, UC San Diego. Whoa, I'm sorry.
The Tritons were robbed. There were several calls that they should have gotten that they did not get. They were robbed, and that is my very
that was a back and forth game for the majority of the game. It was probably one of the best first round games there was.
It was a good back and forth game, and I think the worry was going into that is that we were worried about San Diego being McNeese, how everybody last year thought McNeese was going to come in, they were going to take down Gonzaga, and then Gonzaga won by how many points last year?
I think it was like
30 plus.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were kind of picking them, and I picked Michigan for that game just because I was like, okay, who have they played? You can win 30 games every season if you don't play at anybody of consequence. But they kept it a lot closer. I know a lot of people were sweating it out, especially if you had Michigan going far in your bracket. But again, I think they were, humbly speaking, they were robbed.
Well, I know a lot of people had a lot of big upset picks, and another one was North Carolina, Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss was in control of that game for the entire game.
Ole Miss was in control of that game. I think North Carolina started their comeback a little too early.
Yeah.
Had they waited until like the 5-minute mark to go on that run that they were going on, I think they probably would have won it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the North Carolina team that we saw playing Dayton was a very different team than the team that we saw going up against Ole Miss.
Oh, 100%.
Because I know you and I were watching that game, and we were talking, if this is the North Carolina team that's going to play in the tournament, this is a tournament team. This isn't the 1-12 against Quad 1, or however they determine that statistic.
I think it's off a win percentage or something like that.
Off a win percentage, who they've played.
Yeah.
Whatever. But Ole Miss, and then went on to beat Iowa State, which then wrecked my corner of that bracket. Iowa State going to the Elite Eight. So,
I mean, another good game on that side of the bracket was New Mexico Marquette. For a little bit in the early second half, that game was back and forth. Lead changes, but I mean, at the very end, New Mexico just kept getting fouled and pulled away. So. That's another quick upset.
I'm going to trust your judgment on that one because I did not watch a single second of that game.
It was a good one. It was a really good one. And then
let's talk about how Clemson just couldn't buy a bucket in the first half against McNeese.
Yeah.
The aura was there for the first team manager to ever get an NIL deal. 13 first half points for the Tigers, who a lot of people I remember going in to the day saying Clemson's a sneaky Final Four pick. And then they got bounced about 10 seconds into the game and never really recovered. They made the final score a little more respectable.
They made it really respectable.
Way too really long. Close, but too late. I think they cut it down to 1 or 2, but there wasn't a lot of time left.
They lost by 2, but they waited way too long to make their comeback. And if they would have started doing the things they were doing in the second half, first half, they probably would have won.
Probably would have won. And won comfortably, maybe, if their defense would have locked in like they did in the second half.
I think they scored like 40 or 50-plus points in the second half.
Yeah, they would have scored 54 after 13 in the first half.
They probably would almost beat any team doing that.
Yeah. Purdue, also the next game down in that bracket,
yeah,
had a scare from High Point. We everybody who made a bracket was very wary picking Purdue to go anywhere because they tend to get bounced early. I mean, they lost to
2
the
years
shortest
ago.
team
Yep.
in the tournament a couple years ago. High Point, give them credit. They were a scrappy little bunch.
were
They
in
just
that
couldn't
game.
make their threes down the stretch, and Purdue made their freebies at the line, and that's what ultimately
Yeah.
decided it. Purdue winning rather comfortably.
After Purdue got up in that game, they just kept matching what High Point was throwing at them each time. So like punch for punch or.
Yeah,
You
Purdue had the knockout punch, and High Point was just scratching.
Yep. Another good first round game that was sneaky was Alabama and Robert Morris.
That game made me personally nervous because I had Alabama going to it was either the Elite Eight or the Final Four. So when I saw that Robert Morris was only down 4-5 points with 8 minutes to go, I'm like, okay, are we gonna wake up? Is there another FDU St. Peter's moment brewing here? But I mean, Bama won by 9.
They made it a little bigger than it was.
Yeah.
So moving to like the last couple good games in the first round, Arkansas Kansas was another great one. It was back and forth the entire time, and at the very end, Arkansas started to pull away.
Arkansas made their shots down the stretch, and they made their freebies at the line, which really helped decide that game. Arkansas winning 79-72. We'll have more on the first round after this. Welcome back to Beacon Ballers. I'm Mason Gleva here with VUTV Sports Director Adam Stippich here. Last couple of first round games that we're going to highlight. Drake, Missouri.
That was a really good game.
That was a really good game. I know just us being at Valpo, we know Drake is good because we're in their conference. And I think there were some questions surrounding, okay, SEC team, are they going to step up to the moment? And they delivered and then some against Missouri.
I mean, anytime you see like a 11 or 12 seed that has like 3 losses, you know they're good because any team that only has 3 losses they're just used to winning.
Right.
And that's what's going to continue happening in the NCAA tournament.
Right, and Drake was up comfortably in the second half, and then they couldn't buy a bucket there for a few minutes late, and we're going, oh, great. I had Drake losing in the next round, and they lost to Tech. But
you thought for a second that Missouri might have
there for a minute,
comeback.
Missouri might have killed the only Cinderella this year, but Drake held on to beat Missouri by 10, 67-57. Another game we wanted to talk about, you watched more of it than I did, was St. Mary's Vanderbilt.
In Missouri, or St. Mary's. But that game was very interesting because Vanderbilt was in the lead the entire time, and then at the very end, I think with about 3 minutes left, St. Mary's started to make their run, and then they never looked back.
Well, and that's sort of the danger that you run in. You can have the lead the entire game, but if you don't throw that knockout punch to the team that you're playing, especially in March, you run the risk of having that last 4 or 5 minute collapse.
And that's exactly what happened.
That's what happened to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a great regular season, but that doesn't necessarily matter come March.
Well, I mean, most SEC teams had a pretty good regular season until they got to SEC
until
play.
They got to, and then it was just beating up on good at that point.
Yeah, it was.
Looking ahead, this was an Elite Eight game. We're sort of fast forwarding. There really wasn't anything eventful that happened. This March kind of went to plan. All of the higher seeds won the games that they were supposed to.
I don't think a single 1 through 4 got upset
Not
first round.
Not a single 1 through 4 seed was upset in the first round or two. The only one that went down was Iowa State. That was a round of 32 or a Sweet 16
I think it was a round of 32, and then and then St. John's also went down in the round 32.
Yeah, to Arkansas. Alabama made all of their shots against BYU.
Yep.
All of the threes. You want to talk about setting tournament records for 3 points made, 3 points attempted. They ran up the scoreboard to 113 points, and then they put up 65 against Duke.
I know. It's just the turnaround is crazy.
The turnaround was crazy. I don't know that they shot above 30% from 3 they shot 25% from 3-point land. They were out-rebounded 41-30. against a Duke team that if you give them the opportunity to make another shot, they'll make it. As
Yeah.
a Notre Dame fan, Cooper Flagg killed us in camp, as he killed most teams this year.
Yeah, almost every single team.
And it's impressive that he's doing it as a high school senior.
I know.
Like, I know a lot of us get annoyed at Cooper Flagg. Oh, geez, here we go again with the Cooper Flagg Love Fest. But the fact that he's doing this as an 18-year-old when he should be in high school against 21, 22-year-olds who
Yeah,
are
it's just
also first-round
really
draft
impressive.
picks in their senior year of college is really impressive. Duke clobbering Alabama to move on to the Final Four.
Well, I wanted to rewind and talk about Maryland, Colorado State. That was probably the game of the round of 32.
Back and forth, Colorado State having the lead
Majority
most of the game.
yeah.
But Maryland made the shots when it mattered and comes away with the win just before or at the buzzer.
I think it was at the very buzzer. I think Queen hit a buzzer beater going left, and then it just sends them to the round
of 16. Ball and he was
16.
going left. Yeah, and they were on to the Sweet 16. Maryland would then run into Florida.
And that's just
Florida's Florida, and
this year Florida's
Gators
looking
chomped.
really good, except for against UConn. That was quite the game.
That was quite the game. We were at the Notre Dame women's tournament game in South Bend there, and UConn was making us a little nervous.
UConn was winning.
They hung around. Now, UConn, they have double-digit losses on the year, but they've beaten really good teams.
Yes.
So you knew that UConn wasn't just going to roll over and go away easily, and they led for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years, obviously, they won the tournament. This year, even though they didn't make it past Florida, they were still really competitive. And with a coach that they have, he's going to make every single game that they're in competitive.
Right. And if you want to stick with us here, we will highlight the Final Four and our national champion pick after the break.
Hello, I'm still here with Mason Gleva, and then we're going to start talking about the Final Four.
Yeah.
This year's Final Four is all number 1 seeds. I think it's the last time that's happened was the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right, because I don't remember one where they were all 1 seeds. I mean, sure, we've had a couple not usually on the same side of the bracket, like Auburn and Florida.
Yeah.
But those two are very familiar, being from the SEC.
Well, I think this year's Final Four is looking to be really good. It's who you expect to be in the Final Four. And I think every single game is really good. First, I think the first game is Auburn and Florida. I mean, they've played many times this year already, and Florida, I think, got the best of Auburn in those games. And I think that'll probably happen again. My pick, I have Florida winning it all, so I think it's probably going to be like a 69-66 game, very close to the wire.
Interesting. I think it might be a little more high scoring.
You think?
I think so. I mean, I'm not saying we'll be in the 90s. We'll probably be in the upper 70s, low 80s winner. The line right now is Florida 2.5. I think Florida probably covers that. They probably win by 3 to 5.
Walter Clayton's been unbelievable this
right.
tournament.
If he plays the way he's been playing, there will be no answer from Auburn, as much as I love Broom. I think Florida wins that game. Then we have an interesting matchup for the late night one, because you have Duke taking on Houston. Houston has looked shaky at times.
And then their last game against Tennessee, they looked unbelievable.
Game against Tennessee, they looked unbelievable, and it really just matters when you hit your stride in this tournament. I think Duke wins. I don't think they cover the 5.5.
I don't know. I don't think Duke will win this one. I think Houston will, because you got I think it is the best defense in college basketball this year. And then you got a freshman in Cooper Flagg. I'm not sure he's going to be able to handle all of Houston's pressure that they're going to give him throughout the game.
Interesting. Anyway, we both had the same national champion picks.
Yep,
we both picked Florida. They've been the most complete tournament coming up. Complete team in the tournament.
Coming into the tournament and in the tournament.
I promise.
Yeah.
Had the scare against UConn, but that seemed to really get them into gear, and I think that's what
they almost lost to Texas Tech still, too. They were down 10 with, I believe, 3 minutes to go in the game. That one scared me, too. I was like, I don't think they're going to get past this one.
It's
But
Florida.
somehow Walter Clayton comes out of nowhere and just makes everything.
They like the late game dramatics.
Yeah, they do.
apparently.
They like
So,
to put on a spectacle, that's for sure.
Should be a fun weekend of basketball in store.
So next time on the sports show, we will be talking about Valpo baseball, softball, and how the basketball tournament went in the MVC tournament. Thank you for joining me on the Beacon Ballers, and then
Thanks for having me.
no problem. I enjoyed you.
It was fun.